Relations between the Sussexes and the Prince of Wales remain fraught. William's running out of patience, said the source. Good on him. He believes the Sussexes have cashed in on their royal connection.
You need to stop while you are ahead, because you're going to look like a fool. It's ridiculous. Stop it. Okay? This doesn't even make sense to me that she would even think that she...
Harry and Meghan went scorched earth. The palace said, absolutely not. We're going to completely cut you off now, thanks to Oprah, thanks to Spare, thanks to the Harry and Meghan Netflix series, because they were...
The monarchy waited. The public held its breath. Commentators speculated, whispered, guessed, stretched every maybe into hope. And then, without drama, without ceremony, without warning, William ended it all. That moment mattered because it wasn't loud, it wasn't explosive, it was controlled, calculated, the kind of quiet decision that lands harder than shouting ever could. People expected delay, they expected nuance, they expected the usual royal fog where nothing is ever final. But this time, there was no fog left to hide in.
Meghan's title could be on very shaky ground. Yet those close to the Duchess insist she won't be intimidated. Meghan's never been short of ambition or drive and is absolutely relentless, said the...
This was not how royal business is done, not ever. Future kings don't sign blunt statements. They don't close doors publicly. They don't leave no room for reinterpretation. And yet William did exactly that. 19 words, sharp, final, unmistakable. The kind of language that forces even seasoned palace insiders to reread it twice just to confirm they hadn't imagined it. There will be no pathway for return, no qualifiers, no at this time, no undercurrent circumstances, just a full stop. For someone who had spent his entire adult life doing the opposite, this was seismic.
Moving on from royal life, those titles remain their foundation. She and Harry will fight hard to hold on to them. P. Diner, your reaction?
The delusion.
William was never impulsive. He waited. He absorbed criticism. He allowed speculation to run unchecked because that's what heirs are trained to do. Silence wasn't weakness to him. It was armor. Patience was his strategy. But patience only works when silence still protects something. And suddenly, it didn't. Reality had shifted. And William saw it before anyone else was willing to say it out loud.
Shut your mouth, okay? You don't know what you're talking about. You are not going to get to keep that title. It is going to be stripped. And just get used to.
Why now? That was the question everyone asked. Why abandon decades of discipline with one brutal declaration? Because silence stopped working. Every previous statement about Meghan had been padded with escape routes. Little gaps where narratives could twist and reform. Maybe later, possibly in the future, under review. Those loopholes weren't accidental, they were intentional, and they were being used. William erased them all. Thinks she's just so swelled up with ego, she doesn't even know when to control it. Like, at this point, you need to just shut your mouth. Okay, that's ridiculous. That's what I think, yeah. And the thing is, P. Diner Paula Frolic of News Nation is making it clear that William is very serious about this, but this wasn't emotional, it wasn't reactive, it was surgical. By attaching his name, William made it clear this wasn't palace machinery at work. No aides, no protocol, no trial balloon. This came directly from him. Inside the palace, the message was received instantly. Negotiation was over. A former press secretary said it plainly. When William speaks like this, the matter is beyond debate. And that's when the tone changed. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about Meghan. This was about the King William plans to be. This wasn't emotional. It wasn't impulsive. It was surgical. By putting his name directly on the statement, he made clear it didn't come from advisors or palace protocol. It came from him. What followed exposed a deeper fracture that had been building quietly for months. And I think this was important too. It certainly backed up my reporting over the past few months why William feels so strongly about this. Watch this. Catherine had noticed something long before it became public conversation. The turning point for Catherine wasn't a single scandal. It was a relentless pattern. By September 2024, she was fully immersed in her work. Early childhood initiatives, mental health programs, long-term policy efforts designed to define her future role. And yet, every announcement seemed to trigger something darker. Royals, your sources are telling you the Duke and Duchess of Sussex may lose their title. Why? How did this happen? Articles would appear. Not random, not sloppy, timed. Same phrasing, same anonymous insiders, same subtle undermining. Catherine didn't react emotionally, she documented it. At first, she ignored it. She had long been accustomed to media noise, but Catherine is methodical. By November, she had evidence. 10 instances, less than 48 hours apart. too precise to dismiss. She took it to William quietly. "This is intentional," she said quietly. For someone who rarely complains, that sentence landed like lightning. This wasn't tabloid chaos. This was strategy. And William understood immediately what was being targeted wasn't just Catherine's reputation, it was the monarchy's future. The brothers clashed earlier this week. The timing isn't great for Harry. No. I mean, listen, my sources are saying that William no longer recognizes his brother. The realization hardened him. What had once felt like family fallout now looked like calculated interference. William understood immediately the attacks weren't random. They were a calculated assault on the woman who would one day be queen. By mid-November, confirmation arrived. By mid-November, William received a classified security briefing that altered everything. This wasn't gossip, it wasn't opinion. It was data, coordinated harassment, identical narratives, amplified in waves, and the target was clear. Clusters of accounts acted in unison, pushing identical narratives. A significant portion traced back to pro-Sussex networks. What once felt like emotional conflict had metastasized into something operational. Catherine, ever composed, never demanded action. But watching his wife absorb calculated hostility while holding the public line changed something fundamental. Ambiguity wasn't neutral anymore. It was enabling harm. While William reached clarity, Charles remained torn. While William reached clarity, Charles struggled with a weight few could imagine. October had been brutal. Staff overwhelmed, crisis management replacing governance. Sussex fallout consuming time meant for diplomacy and policy. Charles confided something painful. "I feel trapped between my love for Harry and my responsibility to the institution." Hope became paralysis. William observed closely. He respected his father's compassion, but compassion without boundaries had consequences. And then Anne spoke. Then Anne intervened. No emotion, no softness, just truth. "You cannot protect everyone." She had spent her life serving the institution. She knew sentiment could not outweigh structural survival. Institutions survive by enforcing boundaries. There was no middle ground, and William finally stopped searching for one. By December, pressure was everywhere. Catherine under attack, Charles exhausted, staff uneasy, international partners watching. Enough was enough. Anne's words resonated. December 1st, Windsor Castle, a private study, a single folder on the desk. December 1st, Windsor Castle, a private study shrouded in silence. William arrived early. Charles followed. Anne, Catherine, no theatrics, just gravity. William opened the meeting plainly. "This decision will be permanent." The statement was read, slowly, each word heavy. Catherine was the first to speak. "It's clear, it doesn't attack, it states reality." Charles hesitated, then nodded. "You have my support." At 7:48 a.m., it went live. At 7:48 a.m. the next morning, the statement went live across the world. History shifted. Across the ocean at 4:48 a.m. California time, Harry read it alone. 4:48 a.m. California time. Harry's phone vibrated quietly in the dark of his bedroom. This wasn't palace spin. This was his brother, and something broke. Meghan's reaction was quieter, measured, controlled. But even control couldn't disguise what had been lost. For years, ambiguity had been leverage. That leverage was gone. For decades, ambiguity had been Meghan's ally. The door was closed. Publicly. Permanently. This wasn't symbolic, it was operational. This was not a symbolic gesture, it was operational. No coordination, no inclusion, no institutional backing. Freedom, yes. But complete independence came with weight. Freedom, yes, but with it came the weight of complete independence. The crown drew lines, clarified boundaries, set precedent. The shift wasn't punitive, it was definitive. History will argue about ethics, about timing, about fallout. But one fact remains unmovable. At 7:48 a.m. on a December morning, Prince William ended the longest, unresolved chapter in modern royal history. This wasn't revenge, it was resolution. This was not revenge, it was resolution. William chose certainty over illusion, protection over sentiment, institution over hope. From that moment forward, the monarchy stopped waiting. It moved. The era of indefinite ambiguity ended, and history will remember the day silence finally spoke. And what made this moment so unsettling for observers wasn't just what William said. It was what he refused to say afterward. No follow-up, no clarification, no softening interviews, no palace sources rushing in to reinterpret his words for public comfort. The silence after the statement was louder than anything that came before it. That silence was intentional. It told the world this decision was not up for discussion, not open to revision, and not designed to soothe anyone's feelings. Inside royal circles, that silence triggered a quiet recalibration. Staff staff understood immediately that a new internal rule had been set. This wasn't just about Meghan or Harry anymore. This was precedent, a line drawn so clearly that future crises would be measured against it. William had signaled that ambiguity would no longer be the monarchy's default defense. From now on, clarity would be the weapon. For years, the Sussex narrative thrived on uncertainty. Every half-statement became a canvas. Every delay created space for counter-stories, victimhood arcs, and strategic leaks. The institution's reluctance to be blunt had allowed others to fill in the gaps, loudly, persistently, and often destructively. William's statement collapsed that space in a single stroke. There was nowhere left to project intention or negotiate meaning. The words stood on their own, and that's what frightened people most. Because when a future king chooses finality over flexibility, he is telling everyone exactly how he intends to rule. Behind the scenes, senior aides reportedly described the mood as reset. Meetings shifted, language was reviewed. Even long-standing assumptions about how far family considerations could bend institutional rules were quietly discarded. William wasn't reacting anymore. He was restructuring. Catherine, meanwhile, returned to her work without comment. No visible triumph, no satisfaction, just composure. That too sent a message. This wasn't about personal victory. It was about stability, about ensuring that initiatives meant to shape decades ahead were no longer undermined by chaos imported from unresolved family drama. For the first time in years, she could operate without bracing for the next timed distraction. Charles's response was more complicated. Publicly, he stood behind his son. Privately, those close to him say the moment marked an emotional surrender, not of love, but of illusion. The belief that patience alone could heal everything had finally collapsed under the weight of reality. Supporting William didn't mean abandoning Harry emotionally, it meant accepting that the crown could not continue paying the price for endless uncertainty. And then there was Anne. Those who know her say she felt no vindication, only relief. Relief that someone had finally done what institutions require when sentiment threatened survival. Her influence on William in that moment wasn't dramatic, but it was decisive. She reminded him that leadership is not measured by how many people you keep happy, but by how effectively you protect what must endure beyond you. Outside the palace, reaction fractured instantly. Supporters praised William's strength. Critics accused him of coldness. Commentators argued about compassion versus authority. But the monarchy itself did not engage. It didn't need to. The statement had already done its work. For Harry and Meghan, the aftermath was quieter than many expected. No immediate counter-statement, no dramatic rebuttal, just a sudden absence of leverage. Every future move now had to stand alone, without the gravitational pull of royal association. That reality reshaped everything, from media interest to long-term relevance. Independence sounds powerful, but it is unforgiving. There are no institutional buffers when narratives turn. What became clear in the weeks that followed was this: William hadn't just closed a door. He'd sealed a chapter that had been draining the monarchy's credibility for years. By doing so publicly, he ensured it could not be reopened through whispers or back channels. History would record the decision not as a feud, but as governance. And that distinction matters, because future generations won't read this moment as gossip. They'll read it as policy, as the instant a future king chose structure over sentiment and accepted the personal cost of leadership. They'll see a man who understood that unresolved conflict doesn't stay private. It metastasizes, corrodes, and weakens everything around it. William didn't wait for consensus. He didn't wait for permission. He acted. And in doing so, he revealed the monarchy's next era before his reign has even begun. An era where silence is no longer a shield for chaos, where boundaries are explicit, where loyalty to the institution outweighs fear of backlash, where clarity replaces speculation. The crown had spent years being pulled backward by unfinished business. On that December morning, it finally stepped forward, not with noise, not with drama, but with certainty. And once certainty enters the room, nothing ambiguous survives.